All right, what's going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at out here on this fine Sunday. It is December 10th, 2023, about 12:55 p.m. here, California time. Latest activity on the globe shows a 2.8 earthquake here across the Mediterranean. Did see some larger movement out here in Nebraska, of all places. This could be my future home area out here for relocation. I absolutely love this area, but looks like earthquake activity would be following me if I do make the move out here. 4.2 coming in just within the last, about hour and a half here near Guide Rock, Nebraska. 4.2, 7 kilometers deep, somewhat of an oddball earthquake out here in the southern Nebraska area. It is on the north side of the border here up with Kansas. A few folks did report feeling that earthquake activity out here. Looks like around Guide Rock, Blue Hill area. And Lawrence as well getting in on a little bit of reporting of this earthquake. Not a big one, but still probably a little surprise out there to feel some shaking out in Nebraska. Now this area of Nebraska has seen some earthquake activity out here. It does sit, let me show you guys the U.S. hazard map. It sits a ways away from the New Madrid seismic zone. And literally in a portion of the country that does not see that much earthquake activity. If you really think about it, they're centered roughly right around the area of the North American craton. It's a relatively stable piece of land over the past, I don't know how many millions of years, that doesn't see a lot of warping, doesn't see a lot of deformation in terms of mountains, and it's just relatively stable. And it's been that way, like I mentioned, there for millions of years. Supposedly, according to the geologists and the theories and whatnot that they hold. So it's kind of odd to see an earthquake of this magnitude out there in that area of the continent of North American plate. Historical data out here, well, let me pull that up, see what we got. There's really not a whole lot in terms of historical data. This would show 4.5 and above. Of course, this earthquake is a 4.2. Looks like Kansas down here did see a couple, maybe above 4.5. But that's it's just a little odd, right? A little odd. If you did feel this earthquake out here, let me know what it felt like. Kind of interested. Far as any, those pumping operations out there, I don't know if there is any, but just go ahead and take a look, see what we have out there in the beautiful state of Nebraska. The good life. All right, out here in the field, it looks like. That's what I like to see. Lots of fields. Not even joking. The openness out there is, I'm sure, very peaceful. Peace of mind. I'm not seeing any pumping operations out there. Doesn't mean there isn't any. Not for sure what their water level tables are like out there. I know they were dealing with a little bit of a drought in this area. Sometimes stuff like that can create some earthquakes, but that's a 4.2, and that's a fairly decent sized earthquake. Continue to watch that, see if we got any further movement going on out there. Like I say, it's a little sporadic. We don't really see too much activity out there. West Texas still seeing quite a bit of movement. This here is easy to spot out here in the desert of Texas. As we zoom in, there is a massive amount of pumping operations and wastewater disposal ponds and facilities and fracking operations out here. So, of course, a lot of earthquake activity within that zone. For California, well, the Pacific Northwest, it looks like we did have another earthquake up here around Mount Hood, 1.5, 2.5 kilometers deep. I want to double check something here real quick on the volcano seismicity map. By the way, last night or yesterday, 310 epicenters of tremor. That's quite the uptick compared to the past couple weeks or so. We've seen very minimal. That's down there around the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Volcanic seismicity around Mount Hood. There's that one little earthquake right smack dab up at the summit region, it looks like. So we're going to see if these seismograph stations are going to tell us anything. Although I'm not for sure if this one's a working station. Let me see here. Give it a second. These are always kind of slow. When did this earthquake hit? 0857. 0857. So literally about 5 hours ago, right? So that would put it roughly around maybe right here. That may be the earthquake, 1.5. This other activity, I'm not for sure. I don't know if they're running the ski lifts or what for an hour or so. That doesn't look like earthquake activity. To me, it really doesn't. It looks like some type of environmental noise around the seismograph station itself. But that little earthquake in question looks to be 1.5 right here. So there's really not a lot of earthquake activity happening. See, looks like they turned something on here for about 2 hours or so, and it's consistent. And then it goes off, and then they turn it on for another 2 hours. It could be a generator. Who knows what it is? But that's definitely not earthquake activity or volcanic activity. That's for certain. All right, California. Northern California, a little spotty in terms of earthquake movement. We did see one earthquake here last night off the coast here of Salinas. 2.4 coming in 7 kilometers deep on this little fault system here. We haven't really seen too much earthquake activity on. It's just on the Pacific side of the plate boundary. San Andreas Fault there in the dark red line. Further down south, we were watching a little swarm of activity here in the Salton Sea region. We did have a couple more earthquakes after midnight, a 1.3 and a 1.5, but most of this activity here from yesterday. And it was a pretty decent amount of some earthquakes out there, with a couple 3 stirring in to this earthquake swarm. The largest, a 3.3 in that cluster of activity. Still kind of watching it. Going to leave up the earthquake watch here for today. Not so certain that we're done with movement out here in Southern California. Across the Pacific here, what do we got going on out here? Some movement in the Mariana Islands area, it looks like. One of these from yesterday, but we did see a 5.7 here earlier this morning. About 6 o'clock my time here. 5.7 at 119 kilometers deep. That's obviously going to be adding some strain a little bit further upstream. Looks like an hour later we did see a shallower earthquake, although up here north of that 5.7, that 4.8 coming in 9 kilometers deep. So a little bit of heightened movement out here across the Pacific plate boundary along with the Filipino plate. That's going to be this area here. That should amplify potentially some further stress over here across this region where we've been watching the Philippines go through quite a bit of shaking. I did see a 5.0 following all this activity up north. So obviously a lot of stress being applied here further across the Philippine Trench. One 5-pointer back across the New Guinea region. It looks like about 11 kilometers deep or so. Let me check out the earthquake 3D globe, see what we got. Yeah, just a huge clustering going on here today. Up into the Curl Kamachaka, it looks quiet, although at the northern end here, looks like maybe a 4-pointer or so coming into that area. USGS reporting, well, this is going to be the Japan Trench area. Look how deep that one is. 251 kilometers for 4.3. That was yesterday. A little bit further up north, still relatively deep, though. 4.6 into this area of the Curl Kamachaka, 159 kilometers deep. So further stress building up here at the surface levels. Continue to watch that maybe for some larger scale movement here. I think it's well overdue in terms of seeing a large quake. I'm talking about above a 7-pointer. Alaska area, let's see here. Got quite a few 2s. Nothing major overnight. 1 3.2 out here. Way up north. Around the North Slope area, north of the Brooks Range. 5 kilometers deep for that 3.2. Early this morning, it looks like. Out here in the southeastern Pacific, we did see some further activity this morning in the southern East Pacific Rise divergent boundary out here, the separation fracture in the oceanic crust. Easter fracture zone, 5.1. Some previous activity, it looks like, stirring up here across the Pruchilli Trench, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this area show some further uptick following that divergent boundary activity there in the southeast Pacific Ocean this morning. Puerto Rico Trench up here. Been watching this kind of closely here, but right now it's holding on. 4.1 over here around the Dominican Republic here. 155 kilometers deep, though. That is super deep. And then a 2.4 a little bit further up around the Puerto Rico area. Still kind of keeping an eye on that. It's been heightened somewhat. Out here in the Atlantic Ocean, we did see a couple more earthquakes here around the Reconnaissance Ridge near the Bight Fracture Zone. 5.2 and a 4.7. That was just after midnight. Let's see if we got anything stirring up in Iceland. Their latest update here. I just checked this. This is you notice they don't have an information statement up here anymore about that the likelihood of an eruption is still possible. Well, they got rid of that. The latest update here is from 4 days ago. Things are not increasing at all. They talked about the migration of magma around the region there, but no new update. And the latest earthquake activity here. Let's see if I can bring up earthquake activity. Let's see. Got a little bit further movement up north here, north side of Iceland, down here around the Grindavik area. Well, I don't see any major change. This is all relatively smaller earthquake activity. About 143 earthquakes in total here across Iceland. The only thing that I'm noticing more about this region is a little bit further increasing earthquake activity here at the northern side of Grindavik underneath this town. That could have something to do with subsidence because magma intrusion obviously built up in here and then it went down. It could be solidifying potentially across this area. I don't see anything in terms of increasing volcanic activity yet in this region. We'll wait for Monday. I guess tomorrow they'll put out an update, hopefully. Otherwise, I think we would be seeing that there on the Icelandic site if something major had changed. Hawaii, anything major going on out here besides Pahala activity? Nothing up here around the volcano. Let's go ahead and check out the latest statement here from the HVO. It was put out today. Kilauea volcano is not erupting. Same thing. Although the past couple days here have seen a slight decline in earthquake rates. Most of the earthquakes have been focused in a cluster just southeast of the Kilauea Summit region. Let's see what the tilt meter looks like here today. It was going up and down here over the past couple days, but still elevated. We'll check this out here and see what we got real quick. Up around the Summit region, I normally use this station right here, UWE. We can check others out as well, but that's a pretty consistent one that works all the time, it seems. Past 2 days, overnight, looks like a decline. Within the last few hours, we've seen kind of a sharp uptick on this graph. This is, again, the last 2 days. So it looks like we may be heading back up for inflation. Now, whether that peaks up beyond this previous highest level, we'll have to watch it and see how it plays out. Either way, still got some magma pushing up from this into this area. A look at a view of the lava lake area shows still some steam and some volcanic gases. It does look cloudy out there in the distance, so obviously if it's colder, this heated volcanic gases will condense into water vapor and look like clouds, more like steam. And that's kind of what's taking place out here today, it looks like, across this region. But obviously not erupting. We'll continue to watch that and report back on anything should it change. Flaring activity. We do have a sunspot region here, 3513, that is directly looking at us. Here, looking at us, meaning the planet Earth, and getting a little bit of flaring going on there right now. Also, the active region over here that's kicked up over the past couple days is flaring as well. But this one I'm not too concerned about because anything that does blast off will be directed away from Earth. This one here, anything blast off, it will be directly sent to Earth and will be geo-effective. 99% chance overall threat for a C flare, M flare at 55, X flare still elevated at around 10% chance. And let's see what 3513's doing today. Oh, that looks a little on the, whew, that just messed with my eyes. They did something different here. Are you guys seeing that? I think you guys are seeing that, right? I don't think it's just my computer screen. Normally it's not like this. And I don't think that means that the sun has increased. I think it's just an issue with their coloring, because it's supposed to look like this. You guys see that just a little bit. That would be chaotic if that was actually happening. But I'm looking for the magnetic structure here of 3513, and there's still quite a bit here in the center section, center core of it, that does harbor some potential for some stronger flaring. And of course down here, this area is going to be out of sight, out of mind soon. And we're left with a little weak sunspot region down here that doesn't really look like it wants to do much. So I'll just continue to watch this, see if 3513 wants to pop off anything today. A little coronal hole. Now these are actually not coronal. These are not holes in the sun. I've seen a lot of the fear-mongering going on with the mainstream media taking advantage of this. Giant hole in the sun. 100 times the size of Earth. You know, these are just coronal holes. It's an opening there in the corona of the sun that allows solar wind stream to flow out and away from the sun area. And we have a couple of them, as you can see on the latest image here. Got one region right here and another one on the bottom. Now, once this gets into position here, it's possible we could see enhancement from that solar wind stream flowing to our planet. That could amplify conditions here. Oh, once it arrives, 48, 72 hours or so. So we'll have to watch this here in the coming days, see if this gets updated as far as the aurora forecast goes. But for now, just a little bit of flaring popping off. Severe weather. Already seen reports of tornadoes out there. This is the current severe weather risk out across the east. A couple areas of 5% zones for tornadoes and 2% as well. Got some wind and hail threats in there. But I already seen definitely some tornado reports being sent out there. So make sure you guys are keeping your weather radios on and be alert and wary of what's going on in the sky. All right, folks, I think that's about it. I'm going to jump off here. I've been checking this Pacific jet out, the jet stream out here in the Pacific, because that plays a part on... I went to the North Pacific, but I want upper air dynamics, jet stream wind. This plays a big part on what goes on out here in California in terms of our winter, right? And it still looks like we want to, like it's wanting to form a west to east pattern here. That would bring a line of storms here to California and significantly amplify our chances of rain and snow. And it looks like it's still holding steady there. Zooming across the California area, it's just getting stronger. So we'll continue to watch this and see how this one plays out. The CMC model doesn't quite go as far, but it does show the strengthening out here of the Pacific jet, and that's what we want for weather conditions out there. We don't want this thing going up and then down, because that would be high pressure ridging going on, keeping that jet way up north. But got to keep an eye on this, because that could tap into some, you know, the warmer waters out here in the Pacific due to the El Nino pattern. That could strengthen any of these storms that get formed on here and shot at the Pacific Northwest and California. Could be some decent weather coming up here for us. Decent meaning lots of rain. That is my term of decent. Still seeing some activity down here south of the border, so I don't think we're done yet with overall activity in Southern Cal. So I'll keep the Southern California earthquake watch up for now, and we'll catch you guys back here a little bit later. Enjoy your Sunday, folks. Take care.